I'm Michael Popok, and you're at the intersection on the new Legal AF YouTube channel. Must be a terrible old home week for Donald Trump because people that he has abused in the past are all stepping forward with courage to take on Donald Trump. One is the Exonerated Five, the five former teenagers who were wrongly accused and convicted of sexually assaulting and abusing a jogger in Central Park back in 1989. I was in college during that time in New York. I have my own kind of firsthand knowledge of having living there. And the Exonerated Five have now sued Donald Trump for comments that he made that were defamatory against them in Pennsylvania during the presidential debate with Kamala Harris, the only debate apparently he's going to have. In the same week, in the same breath, Stormy Daniels is reclaiming again her dignity and her authenticity by refusing to enter into yet another election interference agreement with Donald Trump. This time, one of Donald Trump's lawyers wants her to sign a non-disclosure agreement again, a confidentiality agreement again, a gag order again, in return for them waving a magic wand and not having her pay certain money that she actually owes Donald Trump for a defamation case. I'll break that down in a minute. And she said, no, I've testified against Donald Trump. I've written memoirs against Donald Trump, and I'd rather not stop, quote unquote, defaming him with my personal truth of what happened to me after he defamed me. And so, no. And she instead went to the GoFundMe pages and picked up $1 million and paid off Donald Trump and got rid of that. Let's go back to the Central Park Five for a minute. Central Park Five, now the Exonerated Five, are five former teenagers who were browbeaten and abused during police interrogation, separated from their parents, separated from lawyers, who confessed to a series of crimes they did not commit in Central Park against what was referred to then as the Central Park jogger. We now know her as Trish Melly, an investment banker, Wall Street investment banker, who went jogging in Central Park, frankly, at a time she should not have been jogging in Central Park because it was so dangerous as a city, and ended up getting horribly abused. She was hit with a rock. She was sexually assaulted. It just wasn't by these five teenagers. It was by, eventually, DNA was extracted, and somebody confessed who was a convicted murderer and rapist, and that's how that eventually went down. The city of New York eventually paid the Exonerated Five, Yusef Salaam, Raymond Santana, Kevin Richardson, and Corey Wise, $41 million. And Yusef Salaam is now a councilman, an elected official in New York. And they have spent the last 30 years trying to reclaim their dignity. They're trying to reclaim their emotional stability because they were so horribly psychologically damaged from being teenagers branded rapists in jail, and have tried to recover themselves. In fact, they recently gave an amazing speech led by Corey Wise, who's probably the most psychologically damaged of all of them, at least on the surface, in support of Kamala Harris, and introduced by Reverend Al Sharpton. Moving moment. Didn't move Donald Trump, who decided on September the 10th that he was going to defame them when a moderator in that debate said, why are you still asking for and doubling down on the guilt of these innocent men? And why don't you apologize to them? Donald Trump back in 1989 went as far as to dig into his pocket, pay $81,000, and post full-page ads in the New York Times and in other places calling for the Central Park Five, the five teenagers, to be assassinated. To be given the death penalty, right? To be killed for crimes they did not commit. And over the years, since 1989, every time he's been asked, in every debate, including in 2016 and beyond, he's decided he needs to be law and order and continue to claim that they are guilty of crimes they did not commit. He will not apologize to them and continues to say there was enough evidence to convict them, that they pled guilty without recognizing that they were browbeaten, recognizing that they were abused by the police, and that's why the city of New York paid the $41 million. Donald Trump was even asked on the debate about it and did it again. Instead of saying, I was wrong, the evidence shows I was wrong, they were exonerated, the city paid it, they paid their debt to society for crimes they did not commit, and people like Yusef Salaam is a credit to his society now being a public servant, an elected official. And so they've had enough. Just as Stormy Daniels had enough and said, I'm not going to tell the world that I'm not going to be gagged about, you defaming me and then trying to gag me from telling my authentic truth. Not going to do that. And what I think the spark was for Yusef Salaam and the Exonerated Five was something that almost like a coincidence, something that was a strange serendipitous moment where Yusef Salaam, after the Democratic National Convention speech after the debate, was in the spin room that followed the debate on behalf of Kamala Harris. He's a tall, elegantly dressed gentleman, and he was there, obviously black, and that will play into the story in a minute. Donald Trump was in the spin room, place where you don't normally go when you're the candidate. You go, your advocates, your proxies go. You, the candidate, don't go into the spin room. We always said he went into the spin room because he knew he did so terribly that he felt he had to control the message of the story after the debate with Kamala Harris. So Trump is in the spin room and Yusef Salaam is in the spin room. And people that observe this believe that Donald Trump didn't know who Yusef Salaam was, that he didn't recognize the modern day, a male who's now in his late 40s, early 50s, and thought he was there to support Donald Trump, if you can believe it, in Donald Trump's narcissistic stew of a mind, and said, "Good to see you're here with me." And Yusef Salaam was like, "I'm not here with you." But people said they don't think that Donald Trump knew who he was. They just thought, well, he's a black guy that's supporting me. This is good. This is good for me. And so as this went on, Yusef Salaam, I think, got more and more annoyed and decided, hey, I'm going to sue Donald Trump. I'm going to sue Donald Trump along with the others because enough is enough. They filed the suit in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. It's in federal court under state law, and it will be decided by a federal judge. Did Donald Trump have actual malice, knowing that what he was saying was false about the Exonerated Five being guilty, where he called for their execution, and back in 1989 said that we need to have hate towards them, as he promoted hate during a tinderbox moment in New York history? Read Bonfire of the Vanities. Look up the Crown Heights riots after a Hasidic Jewish man accidentally ran over a teenager and what happened from there. Look up things like that, and the Central Park Five, who were accused of wilding and of being a wolf pack in Central Park and attacking this white Italian-American woman. This is the era of Bernie Goetz pulling out a gun on the subway and shooting 4 other black teenagers and getting away with it from a jury and being exonerated by a criminal jury. That's the period of time that we're in, okay? And so Donald Trump stoked all of this hatred, making it very difficult to even pick a jury. So I think he has blood on his hands for even the conviction. And saying we need to have hate in our heart towards these animals, calling them animals, taking out a full-page ad, calling for the death penalty to be installed against them and used against them in New York. And now, after Yusef Salaam's unfortunate intersection with Donald Trump in the spin room, I think he said, F this, or legal AF this. We're filing the lawsuit. The judge will decide. Donald Trump will file a motion to dismiss, try to delay things. I think that will be denied. The judge will then get motions for summary judgment on both sides to try to decide the case without a jury. Did Donald Trump have actual malice in his heart and when he made the statements against them? I think given the history of the statements that he's made starting in 1989 all the way through now, the answer is yes. Or the judge will throw up his hands and says, I can't figure out actual malice. Let's let it go to the jury. And a jury will ultimately decide that in 2026 likely, or 2027, but it's important now. Donald Trump won't settle the case. He didn't settle the case that E. Jean Carroll brought successfully, 2 separate cases. He now owes her $100 million related to him sexually assaulting and or raping her in a dressing room in New York during this same period, by the way. So that's an interesting juxtaposition. During the same time that Donald Trump effectively is calling for the execution of these 5 innocent teenagers in 1989, if you listen to E. Jean Carroll, about 7 years later, in 1996-ish, he's raping her in a dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman department store on Fifth Avenue. I would to say he doesn't have the moral authority to be calling for the execution of anybody for committing crimes, especially ones involving sexual assault, would be an understatement. But I'm going to continue to bring it to you right here, just like this. You're already here on Legal AF YouTube channel. Free subscribe. Early voting has started. Free subscribe. Bring other people to subscribe. Our goal is 250,000 subscribers in our first month of existence by Halloween. And we already have 11 million views on this channel, and we just got going with your help. Sitting at the intersection of law and politics is Michael Popok, and I'm reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.